Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, I'm What Game Before, and if you haven't heard about me, you might have guessed from the name I have an interest in retro gaming, but also modern games, and kind of understanding how those two things are tied together. There's so many modern games that have direct influences back to older games that you can find, and so I like to kind of dig into those pasts and tie those things together and share it, as well as digging into some of the hardware that I'm getting back into as well. So if that sounds interesting, you can find me on YouTube under What Game Before. But other than that, I'm here to talk about one of my favorite top 5 games, and that's Zone of the Enders, the second runner on the PlayStation 2. So it's 2004. I'm in my local game store looking for something to pick up and play that I haven't played yet, and I stumble across this pre-owned copy sitting on the shelf. It's got a funky cover. The name kind of sounds interesting, Zone of the Enders. Don't know anything about it. Didn't know it was the sequel to an earlier game. But I didn't miss the fact that it was produced by Hideo Kojima. And so having come out so recently after Metal Gear Solid, which was an amazing game, I had to pick it up. I didn't need to know any more about it than that. I was happy to buy it, take it home, figure out what was going on. And it was the best thing I picked up that year because it's such a classic game that I'm so glad I stumbled across. It's got all the kind of classic things you want from a Hideo Kojima game. It's got a heavy, complex story. It's got lots of interesting characters with quirks. It's got a lot of exposition because that's what we're looking for now with Hideo Kojima games, right? We want to have a movie experience in some of these games. It has amazing music, which they always do. It doesn't have a lot of stealth. There's not really any stealth in this game. It's kind of more linear. It's more combat focused, but the combat is polished and is very, very good. And so you feel like a badass when you're piloting this mech suit in space. And so it's set in the late 22nd century. Earth has colonized Mars, and there's a little bit of a power struggle between those two planets, as well as the fact that a new power source called Metatron has been discovered in the solar system, and that is certainly driving a lot of the power struggles. And so in the first game, you play like a child who's in a colony that gets attacked, and you kind of discover this space mech suit, these orbital frame, called Jehuti, and then you kind of fight back against the invaders. I don't know too much more about the story because I haven't actually played it, but you don't need to play the first one to enjoy the second one. And so in the second one, you play a ex-soldier who used to do work for Mars called Dingo Egret, great name. And so he discovers a container on a moon of Jupiter that contains Jehuti that kind of people didn't know about at the perfect time because Mars is kind of attacking again in that solar system. And so you end up being a pivotal person playing a role to help defend the solar system. And so you gain kind of abilities as you play through. You level up power as well as new abilities that you can, they're effectively programs that you can download / steal from combatants and bosses. It plays more like a kind of 3D beat 'em up game. It's very heavily focused on the combat. And it's very twitchy at times. But as with a lot of games in those genres, if you get into the controls and you kind of, get the sweet spot of how to best play the character that you're in, it's just amazing. Like it just clicks and then it's super fun. And even though it's a kind of short game, it's only like 7 to 8 hours or so. You just kind of have to see it through the end. As much as it's a linear story, it's super, super rewarding for that. Yeah, and even the intro teases what's coming in the game. So the intro to the game is like 7.5 minutes long. And it does kind of show a lot of what's coming up in the story without giving any spoilers, but certainly shows you what you'd be missing out if you don't play this game. And if you're not hooked by just watching the intro and listening to the awesome intro music, then maybe put it back on the shelf, try something else. There is also a little bit of a nod to an earlier Konami game, and that is Gradius. I really don't want to tell you. No, I really do want to tell you all about what happens in the game with this particular nod back to Gradius, but I won't spoil it because it is really fun when it turns up. And again, the music is also a little tribute. So it doesn't take long to turn up in the game, but I won't tell you any more about it than that. An interesting fact about this game is that it has been remastered twice as well. And so originally it was a PS2 release. And then in 2010, I think, it was re-released on the PS3 as an HD collection, which had the first and second game in it. And so even though it's a game you've never heard of, it's already had a remaster, which, we're in the age of the remastered right now. So another reason to pick it up. But it also had a third release. So the second game, the second runner, only got released again on the PS4 in 2018. And it was a 4K update as well as adding VR support. So you can play this entire game in the cockpit of the orbital frame, Jehuti, that you pilot throughout the game. And you can experience the whole thing from that perspective as well. But again, the fact that only the second runner received an update to the PS4 kind of tells you, between the first game and the second game, which one you should probably play. I feel like the developers felt the second one was a more polished version of what they were trying to go for with the first one. And having not played the first one, I'm okay with it. The second one is really good, and I'm okay with just playing that one. All right, I'm going to try and stop convincing everybody that you should play this game, but you can tell it's one of my favorites, and I think you'll enjoy it if you check it out. So you can get it on the PS2, PS3, and PS4, as well as the 360. The HD collection did get released on the 360 too. So you got some options. You got some places to find this game. But even if you do or do not play it, hopefully you find something out there to enjoy next time you get a chance to play. So, happy gaming.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCourt.
with many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Crossplay Conversations debuts on August 1st with brand new episodes hitting every other Tuesday. Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.